Hey everyone, it's Nixie, and today I want to talk about Hatchet Dori. Why is it strong now, and how do you beat it? Because I'm sure you're running into one in your local armory or even ProQuest, and I want to give you tips on how to beat this deck. And before we start, I want to say thanks to you for watching this video, as well as my Patrons for supporting me. You guys are all amazing and appreciate all the support you guys give. This video actually was only possible because of my Patreons. I made a Patreon exclusive article writing today's topic out, and they got to read it for over a week to prepare for their ProQuest, so I hope that gave them a little leg up. And now I want to share this video with the rest of the world to help everyone beat Hatchet Dori. Alright, so let's get into it. So Hatchet Dorinthia is all the rage at the moment, but why is he so strong now? It's not like this deck is that new, because I was playing this deck back in Everfest when Blade Runner came out, and she was able to go 3 swings wide with that deck. So did heavy hitters break open the Hatchet list, or is it something else? Let's dive into this by looking at Max's second place PTLA list to understand what's going on a bit more. I'll leave a link to Max's list in the description below. So here, let's look at the equipment first. And you can see everything is pretty much old except for Balance of Justice. There's no Grain of Blood Spill, and it just relies on Tunic or the chest piece to generate value over the long game. And Balance of Justice is a great new addition to this list because it helps combat the power spike from Blood Rush Bellows and Art of Wars. But this equipment is also generic, so everyone should get a bump if this card was the broken card that was helping out in those matchups. But that's not the case, so it must be something else that helps Axis succeed. Let's look at the rest of the cards in this list to see what else heavy hitters added. Going down here, from this list we can see there's some new heavy hitter cards, and first one here is Blade Flurry. We also have, let's see, going down, Take It on the Chin, Shift the Tide of Battle, Goblet of Blood Run Wine, Nasty Surprise, and Ripple Away. So there are some cards, and let's dive into each one of these to see how big of impact these cards are, starting with Blade Flurry. So Blade Flurry is the best attack reaction I should say, that warriors have received. It's a 0 for 4 attack. We used to have another 0 for 4 with Slice and Dice, but that was only for sword attacks. So this is for any weapon attacks. This is very strong. And this is insane because it's in a reaction step, so opponents can be caught off guard with this. This card definitely has a big impact on dual wielding gameplay because dual wielding can always get the full value out of this Blade Flurry, where you get split up into 2 damage per swing. Unlike with Dawn Blade, which sometimes you only use a +2 on the first Dawn Blade swing, and then if it gets blocked out, you can't use the other +2 damage because you can't swing again. But with dual wielding, you always get the full value, so this is very strong. So this is definitely a big plus. Next is Take It on the Chin, a 0 cost instant that prevents 2 damage, but creates an agility token. This card is great because it's pretty much a hit and run that can be used defensively. Preventing 2 damage, then being able to swing 2 times next turn off of 1 blue pitch is great value. That's also 2 block plus 2 damage from the first weapon swing, then 3 damage from the second swing with hatchets, and then you get a Dynamo Refresh. So that's 8 value off of 1 card you play and then pitch. Maybe even more because Dynamo can help block breakpoints, so maybe it's worth even more than that. So a very strong card to add to this dual wielding build. Next, Shift Tides of Battle is another card that can give agility. However, it is a bit conditional. It requires attack to be higher than its base to be able to play, as well as needing to hit to generate this agility token. The first condition isn't too bad for axes, because the second swing is always going to be powered up. But if you need to give the first swing go again, then shift can't be played, so it's not as helpful. The only other time you can play on the first swing is from a pumped up spill blood, but that's about it. So most of the time you're going to be using on the second swing to give it go again, and then be able to swing with the third swing if you hit with the first weapon or the second weapon. So useful when you're going wide. But if you're going for 3 swings, hit and run is better because it gives go again, as well as power up the second swing. So I don't think shift is that big, but it's still great as another go again source. Next is Goblet of Blood Run Wine, a 0 cost go again card that creates an Agility of Vigor token. Now this is pretty powerful because if you line this up with a tunic counter, you can block out your next turn for 12 damage, and then swing back with both weapons off of a Vigor token and a tunic counter. So, very strong. It also has go again, so your turn doesn't just end if you play this during any time of your turn. Only downside is that it is a 2 block, which can be a little bit awkward, but because you have dynamos, it becomes pretty much a 3 block. And the last card, almost last card, last 2 cards, Nasty Surprise and Ripple Away. I think they're more of tech cards, so I don't think it has a huge impact. So I'm not gonna really talk about it too much, but yeah, those are the other 2 new cards. So looking at the cards, they definitely did improve the strength of dual wielding hatchet list. He added more go agains as well as more power with Blade Flurry, but that's about it. It just added more consistency. A key thing to notice is in this list, there's no Dorinthia specialization cards. So there's no Steel Blade Supremacy or Singing Steel Blade, meaning the damage that this list presents is just face up and not very interactive. There's no big churns other than Spill Blood and occasional powered up third swing from Hidden Roots. So what's this mean? This deck here is a pure math value deck, aiming to extract more value than the opponent and eventually kill them when they are too low and can't block out a dominated swing from Spill Blood or with an attack reaction, like in the swing, Blade Flurry, maybe overpowers. That's about it. I want to visualize the strength of this deck with a graph, with the axes as win percentage versus game length. This graph is a general estimate as to how Hatchet Dori's power curve look as the game goes on. The longer the game goes, the more likely the hatchet build will win because of the value hatchets get not only from their attacks, but also from dynamos. Each turn can be 1 health gain from dynamos, so over a course of the game, they're effectively gaining over 10 health. That's a lot of damage the opponent needs to push through. All the while, Dori can threaten to swing 3 times each turn and push over 8 damage, right? So Hatchet Dori will try to extend the game to their advantage and then grind the game out and eventually come out with a win. But eventually, this deck will start running out of go-agains and will lose a lot of its consistency and will start falling off. But that's hyper late game. Looking at this graph, Hatchet Dori cannot win games at early stages of the match. Without the snowball effect, which Dawnblade offers, Hatchet builds do not have the power to present much threat early on in the game, because they're just pushing vanilla damage. Steel Blade Supremacy can help demand some blocks, but again, this current list does not run that card. So, did all these new cards make Hatchet Dori be able to outlast the damage onslaught from early game and drag out the game to a favored stage for them? That's true, but that's not only the reason. Let's look at what happened to the meta. The biggest reason is because of the powering down of the heroes in the recent sets. Back when I played the Hatchet list after Everfest came out, It did very well into mid-range matchups, even Starvo. But it could not handle the high aggro decks that have Living Legend, such as Chain, Briar, Skeletal Viz, Stubby's Fi, or Fusa's Lexi. But all these powerful heroes are gone now, and there are not many decks that can output as much damage in a short amount of time, so most decks can be grinded down. So if that's the case, how do you beat Hatchet Dori if everything has powered down? So everything did power down, but there are still some heroes that can push a bit of the aggro race and maybe eke out a win in the early stages of the game. Here's the 5 heroes that could do this. First is Katsu, which is surprisingly very explosive and can definitely kill a Hatchet Dori in the early game. Especially with Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, which can help burst down Dori if everything lines up. Sort of like what happened to that Victor on stream that got blown up for 50 plus damage on one turn. But that does rely on a pretty big high roll on the Katsu side, but it is possible because I think that person was able to do it more than once. And if the game goes too long, then Dynamo will deny a lot of the chip damage from Kodachi, as well as stop a lot of the breakpoints, so Hatchet will start winning out. The matchup is on Katsu to beat the Hatchet Dori before the game goes too long. This is also a matchup experience check, because if the Hatchet Dori blocks improperly, just from a single misblock, it can be a difference from 5 damage to 30 damage. So the Hatchet Dori really needs to know what they're doing, same with the Katsu on when it needs to pop off. Next is Viserai, which may seem like it's not that relevant anymore because he lost Rosetta Thorn, but that's not the case at all. The current most popular build is a defensive one-turn kill build that makes a lot of rune chance and throw it out at once or over a longer game with Looming Doom. This build can be very difficult for Hatchet to kill because Viserai is able to assemble all those rune chants and he has a lot of defense reactions, so it's really hard for Hatchet Dori to put pressure to kill him. But there's also an aggressive build, demonstrated by my local John Ho at PTLA. It employs a mix of rune chant generation, Looming Doom, and Ninth Blade to push a lot of damage. This split damage attack makes it really difficult to completely block out, and the Dori will eventually chip down. Then we have some Mechanologists. Max, which can set up Nitro Mechanoid with few high octanes and just push out a lot of damage. And this also is very hard for Hatchet Dori if the Max is able to assemble their Nitro Mechanoid really early on, or if they're able to pitch stack with high octanes. But that does drag it a little bit longer. But Max definitely could in the game pretty early. And then same goes for Dash IO, where they could chip you down pretty easily with high octanes and backup protocols and boom grenades. You would think that you could just fatigue Dash IO, but that's really hard to do. And unlike Guardians that could block out and then throw out some nasty on hits, Hatchet Dori doesn't have any on hits. Again, they're just pushing vanilla damage. So they could take their time to choose when they're gonna block or when they're gonna just keep on shooting a lot of damage. So this one could be also one that could be ended really early. The last one is Fi, who has fallen from grace back from when he was able to run Stubbies, but can still be a huge threat to Hatchet Dori. He's just not currently being run that much in the meta because he's held back a lot by Victor. But if Hatchet Dori becomes very popular, I could definitely see him coming back into the meta with a vengeance. And when that happens, Hatchet Dori will struggle for sure. So those are the heroes I think that's in the too aggressive for Hatchet Dori to handle list. But there's also heroes that could outlast Hatchet Dori's onslaught and efficiency. Here are the 4 heroes that I want to talk about. Not surprising, but the first one is OG Dash, especially the Turtle Dash build, which can outlast hatchets and kill them once they have all their purifiers and chambers out. So when the opponent is shooting for 12 plus damage each turn at the end of the game, Hatchet Dori will start needing to block out too much, and if they still have to hold on to 1 card to pitch and 1 card to give the weapon go again, they're not going to be able to block out everything, and eventually they'll just be chipped down. and Hatchet Dori cannot pressure enough to stop them from assembling all their tools. The same can be said for Teklevossen. He can safely reach his endgame while mitigating a lot of the damage that Hatchet Dori presents with armor blocks, D-reacts, and just 3 blocks that he has access to. And once he has enough cards in his equipment, then he'll able to play Singularity and churn into Teklevossen, the Necropotent, and from there he could use his Necropotent to block as well as dish out a lot of damage while stripping cards, so it gets very hard. It'll be on Dori to make sure that they have enough deck size as well as a healthy life lead to make sure they can survive all the damage that they'll be taking. And if that's the case, then there is a chance that they could fatigue Teklevossen. Fatigue Bravo can outlast Dori's swings because of their 3 blocks and efficient D-reacts. Even though this Bravo may swing Titan's Fist for just 4 damage, eventually the Hatchet Dori will not have enough go against to constantly refresh their dynamos, so they're gonna start leaking damage here too. And then they could always dominate a painful attack like Spinal Crush, Crippling, or Starstruck to stop everything Dori wants to do. And lastly, Dori herself can go the distance and churn it into a slogfest by running hatchets as well and having a mirror match. Or they could run Decimator. A pure Decimator list will outvalue a hatchet list most of the time because all they need to do is pitch a blue to swing for 4. And if Hatchet Dori blocks with a card and dynamos, 1 damage will still go through. It would require Hatchet Dori to block with 2 cards to stop any damage to leak through. And Decimator can still get full value out of D-reacts unlike hatchets. And eventually, hatchets will run out of go against to refresh dynamos, while Decimator will have lots of blues left to keep on swinging. So, Decimator will eventually win out this grindfest. So, that's about it about the aggressive and defensive lists that can beat Hatchet and Dori. But I should also note there's 3 special heroes that give Hatchet Dori a hard time. Azalea, especially with Red in the Ledger, can be devastating. Once they get the tempo, it'll be hard for Hatchet Dori to keep cards to refresh dynamos, or if they do, they'll probably have to take quite a bit of damage to do so. Hatchet lists can tech into Azalea with Oasis and Ripple Away to make this matchup better, but it'll still be very difficult. Prism is actually not too bad for hatchets if they're monolag. But what is really challenging is with the uncommon Iris builds that builds out a lot of auras and just keeps on swinging with them for 4 damage. And killing the auras will stop Hatchet Dori from refreshing dynamos unless it's on their 3rd weapon swing, so they lose a lot of value from that trade. And eventually, they'll just swarm you with so many auras that it becomes overwhelming. Thankfully, this list isn't that popular at the moment, but my friend Oliver Fi is still running it, and I know firsthand how painful this list could be. Last one is everyone's boogeyman Kano, which everyone's like, this hero doesn't exist. But it's very difficult for Hatchet Dori, especially if they're on the defensive list of Sinks, Fates, Oasis, and able to pitch stack and be able to mitigate all the damage and have a double to triple wildfire with double, triple blazing at the very end. And you would think that 2 Oasis is enough to save you, but it's not. They'll be able to still kill you even if you're full health. And there's no hope if the Dori is not running Oasis, they're just gonna take it on the chin. So that were the matchups that Hatchet Dori will struggle into. But I know that you guys are all Dori players, so you want to know how to beat Hatchet Dori as Dori, right? Pure Decimator list has an advantage over Hatchet lists, so that'll be the easiest way to beat Hatchet if they're plaguing your locals. Dawnblade list will be at a disadvantage because it'll be really hard to get a counter to offset Dynamo's advantage. And if you do, you'll easily be able to remove it because of the numerous D-reacts that Hatchet lists run all the time. But this does not mean it's impossible for Dawnblade to win over Hatchets. Let me go over some key strategies to countering Hatchet's game plan, and this will work for both Dawnblade as well as Decimator. It'll actually work for any list really. So, first thing is block their first swing. Now this sounds really weird because it's only coming in for 2 damage. and even if you block the first swing, they can still swing with the other weapon. That's true, but blocking the first swing does two things. First, it's denied the ability to use Brave Forge Bracers to pump the second swing, so less damage is pushed through. Second is that by blocking the first swing, it makes the 3 weapon swings very hard for hatchets. Because if you let the first swing hit, then they play hit and run and swing again. Blocking out the second swing will not do too much because they can still swing with their first weapon that hit. So denying the guaranteed ability to swing a third time is very huge. Meaning if you block out the first one, then they play hit and run and swing again. And if you block the second one, even though they have go again, they're not going to be able to swing again. And they're not able to play Twinning Blade on Axis, so they can't swing if everything is blocked out. So this leads me to the second point. Block their second swing if it has go again, or potential of go again if they have a lot of cards left in hand. If you block out their first 2 swings, then even if it has go again, they cannot swing a third time. And you can think of the second swing sort of like Dawnblade weapon swing, so denying them a hit prevents a lot of additional damage to be pushed through. What you do need to be aware of is attack reactions that can help hatchets get their hits in. And that leads me to the third point. Counter attack reaction buffs left in their deck. If you look at Max's list, he only ran 3 copies of Blade Flurry and In the Swing, and 2 copies of Overpower. That is very little attack reaction buffs. So if you can predict when they might have an attack react and counter with a D-react, then you can deny them from their 3 swing turns. Some other lists may run a few more attack reaction buff, but make sure you know what they're running. And if they're not running Singing Steelblade, you can watch their pitch stack as well. This is my last advice. Get ready for a grindy game. Try to avoid being too greedy if you're on Dawnblade build to push a lot of damage, because even if you get a counter, again you'll eventually lose the counter and you probably sacrifice a lot of health for this, which results in a huge disadvantage. This will come down to probably a few cards left in the deck because you'll be blocking a lot. Running Heart of Findos and 2 copies of Remembrance is recommended to outlast their onslaught. Now, even with this advice, I'll still say Dawnblade is still slightly unfavored to Hatchet list, probably 40-60, but you should be able to skill gap a lot of people that are just jumping onto Hatchets. So with that, I hope this video helps you and you're able to beat up some Hatchet Doris. The reason why I'm kind of also giving you this advice is because not only a lot of people asked how to beat Hatchet Doris, but also because I also don't think this deck is that fun for a lot of people. And I don't really want to see Dori become known for just Hatchet Dori, just value deck. If they were on Sabers with mind game cards like Iron Song Pride and Singing and Twinnings and stuff like that, I think that'd be okay. That's a lot more fun. But this current Hatchet Dori list, I don't think it's that fun to play against or even playing. I hope this video was very helpful and will hopefully be fruitful for your ProQuest. I'll be at Battle Hardened San Francisco. Still don't know what type of Dori list I'm gonna take. I'm still tweaking my list. But if you do come out, I hope I see you there. Because if you do, make sure you say hi and I could give you one of my sweet sleeves. Anyway, that's it for now. Till next time, take care. Bye.